Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Perspectives with Sherry. I'm your host, Sherry Ryan, and tonight I have an extremely special episode for you. I am joined tonight by a special guest, Latisha Woodley. I'm going to get into her accolades, but also our biggest connection, y'all, is we're sisters. She's my little sister. So tonight we're going to have a conversation in honor of Bereaved Parents Month. We are both bereaved parents, and we're going to share with you our story. And then we're going to touch on watching our parents navigate it in their golden years. And we're going to touch on that as well. So, y'all listen, grab your tissues. For other bereaved parents, we want you to know that you're not alone. This is why we're doing this, because it's not easy. But I felt like my platform lately has been largely to do with grief. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, that's just kind of where I'm at. And I think that's okay. And so I am in a season of healing and grief. And I think we don't talk about it enough. I think that a lot of times we internalize and we keep a lot to ourselves, which is not healthy. And so when you can, you talk about it. If you're new here, though, welcome. Over here, my platform with Perspectives with Sherry is largely geared toward women in midlife. And we talk about all things health, wealth, and empowerment. We do know that part of our health is our mental health, and grief also affects your mental, your physical, all of the things, right? And so it's important that we talk about it. And so, welcome to my sister, Latisha Woodley. Yes, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I know that she has a ton going on, y'all. She's getting ready to travel for work, and she has a very full life and a very hectic job. So thank you so much for joining me tonight.
My honor.
Awesome. So to tell you a little bit about my sister, she has been a nurse for 23 years, and her career has spanned the vast majority of all different types of medicine, from pediatrics to obstetrics and gynecology to surgical to, oh gosh, you name it, elder care is where she's at now. And I'm so very proud of her journey, because out of her 23 years of nursing, she's continued to escalate and grow. She's currently the resident care director for Homestead Hills in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where she runs a tight ship, a big facility that encompasses everything from memory care residents to assisted living residents and residents that would need higher level care, like nursing home level care. So lots of responsibility. Whenever she's home, her phone doesn't stop ringing. I don't know how she does it, but I am in awe. And so I'm appreciative of her time tonight. Again, welcome, and thanks again, sis, for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me. Like I said, it's definitely an honor.
Thank you. Thank you. So, y'all, tonight we're going to talk about our journey through the loss of our children. I have spoken on here before about the loss of my son, and I think it's always important for every bereaved parent to say their name. Don't stop saying their name. And so we're going to start off the first part of this conversation. We're going to talk about our children and what, the journey is, what their life meant to us, things that they taught us, and then we'll get into the lost part. So I will start. My journey started in the year 2000. I had my daughter, Bria, and my son, Amir. And I had made the decision to have my tubes tied because I had a boy and a girl. And I thought, I'm done. But after my son, Amir, turned a year old, that following month, I did not realize, miraculously, these tied tubes did not somehow work, and one egg jumped from one side to the other and then split, and I was pregnant with twins. And so we were all amazed. I remember, sharing with you all, you were amazed, right?
Extremely amazed. That's like unheard of, but yeah.
I think like at one point I was literally the only case of this happening to anyone in my county at the time, which was Carter County, North Carolina. I'm gonna have to next time I go back to my doctor, I'm gonna see if my stats were the same, but literally, yeah. So I say that to let you know that the boys were meant to be here, for however long God said they were meant to be here. So um, I was pregnant with twins and was put on bed rest at 5 months and went into labor right around their 7th month and was quickly sent off to a high level of care to Greenville, North Carolina. Those that are not Eastern North Carolina residents won't really understand what that means, but it's a facility that has um, higher level care for premature babies with their NICU staffing. And let me just say, they really have an amazing staff. Um, what happened was I went into labor and my twin A, who is my son Michael Charles George, and my other twin B, Nigel Cecil George, who was a 26-year-old big old man engineer. Um, but his brother, my first twin Michael, was in some trouble. His heart rate was dropping rapidly. By the time they took me from the hospital in Morehead City to Greenville, which is about like a hour and a half, maybe 2 hour drive.
Yeah.
Um, he was about to be a stillborn baby, and so I just remember things swirling in my head, like, oh my gosh, because I wasn't expecting to have them. They were supposed to stop the labor, which is what they were trying to do, but they couldn't, and I gave birth. He did not cry. He was not breathing at first. And so I got to see Nigel, who was the second born. They whisked Michael away. And that night, I was put in my room, and both my twins were in NICU. And so that night, and they were born April 26th of 2000. That night, the doctor came in to see me, and I remember I had a fever. And I wanted to get to the NICU to see my babies, particularly, he had health concerns, and I wanted to know what was going on. I didn't understand all these words, but they were saying his I don't even know how to say it. The oxygen level or oxidation in his blood was really poor, and they didn't think he was going to make it through the night. I just remember thinking, wow, I'm not going to get to see, because I didn't see him. They whisked him away so fast. But God said no. So my son lived 4 weeks. 4 weeks. And for me, and y'all are so crazy because I have told this story a million times. There are times I can tell it eloquently without a voice break, and then there are times I can barely get through. So bear with us tonight. But for me, the next day, I think I didn't have a fever or whatever. Eventually I was able to visit them. Michael, of course, had with the lack of oxygen, he had a brainstem injury. And for those of y'all that don't know, the brainstem controls every function of your body, like your breathing, the ability to swallow, your neurological system, everything. And back then, I just didn't understand. I was in the fight of my life for my children. I mean, Nigel was also in NICU, but for him, it was more about gaining weight, the typical things of a premature baby. He didn't have major health issues. One of the things that when we talk about our children, what we want to leave with you is what made them special. What made him special was I was in a panic because they were going to release me I think like 2 or 3 days after I had the twins, which the twins had to stay in NICU. I thank God for Ronald McDonald House because um, ain't no way I was leaving my babies, honey. Ain't no way. And back then, we couldn't afford to find somewhere to stay. It was a tremendous blessing. So find it in your heart when they do have their fundraisers to donate, because what it does for families is a massive blessing. Um, but I was able to stay there and then visit. And what is special about my son was he taught me that every day was a gift. That you have to relinquish control, because there was nothing I could do. I had meetings with the neonatologist, uh, specialists for respiratory. He had to have spinal taps. He had to have CT scans. He had to have like a multitude of things. And every day they were throwing things at me that I didn't really understand. I was at that time 27 years old, and had two small kids at home, and that were expecting to see their two brothers coming home, and it just was complicated and scary. But God carried me through. I fought and fought and fought when they were saying, well, his damage is extensive, and I'm thinking that's fine. It happens. What are you saying? That's my child. But as time progressed and we had some good days, one of the best things that I remember is the good days. Like, the small wins. I always tell people the small wins are beautiful. On a day where it wasn't like a tachycardia day, or a day where he had to be re-intubated, or he was, he had the pneumonia because of his lungs not being able to take his formula. There's a plethora of things that I could run down that is not the important thing. The important thing that I gathered from it was the days that I showed up, and I showed up every day, that I just had peace with my child. And I appreciated that time. And I think sometimes in life, we worry ourselves with things we can't control, things that don't matter. And it was me and my child. And I would split my time between the two of them until it became evident that my time was better spent with Michael, because I was not going to be taking him home. And that I did not accept that until I'm sorry. Until I had a dream. And in the dream, my son was whole. He looked beautiful and angelic. And God let me know that I was doing the best I could, that he was going to take him home with him. And when God told me that, I could accept it. And so, and this is where my sister comes in. The last night, or the last day of his life, it was supposed to be the last day of his life, the family had come in. They had brought him in and brought Nigel. This was a time that both my twins could be together. And they expected Michael to not live long. And so it was myself, my husband at the time, their father, my sister, my parents. Was there anybody else there, T? I don't know.
I think it was just us.
I think it was just us. And we were all there. And he surpassed the time limit that they said that he would live, because it's not their say so. God has the final. And so that night, they allowed us that room to stay in, and my sister stayed with me that night. And I will truly never forget you for that, because for that night, I felt normal. I had both of my babies in the room. I did cater, of course, to Michael. I got a chance to sing to him, which I did all the time. Mm-hmm. And on that particular night, he had his eyes open and he was really connecting with me. Like we were saying goodbye to each other. Mm-hmm. I didn't get it at the time because I just wasn't as I was like in my mom brain. And just he was transitioning, and when I look at pictures now, I could see it. Then I couldn't because I'm looking through a different lens. Um, but he made it through that whole night. I remember at one point my sister was laying on her bed. It was a cot. They had a cot for her, and I was in the rocking chair doing a lot of just holding the baby. And she didn't tell me this, but to talk about it to you, you were crying, and you didn't let me see it.
Um, yeah. So, I'll be honest. That was probably one of the most gut wrenching moments of my life. You were holding him, and I remember seeing that his color was changing a little bit,
Yep.
and he was cold. He was definitely cold to the touch, and just a little. I was not yet a nurse, so I hadn't become a nurse yet, but obviously that was definitely my path. But he was turning cold, and I remember his color was changing,
Yeah.
and you were singing to him, "Sweet Holy Spirit,
Mm-hmm.
sweet heavenly dove, stay right here with us, fill us with your love." So I remember you were singing that song, and you kept putting the warming lamp over him. You kept
I
saying,
did.
"Oh, it's cold," and you kept warming him.
I did.
And I knew in my heart that he was slipping away,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that you couldn't see that,
Mm-hmm.
and you had so much joy.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember I turned my back and I cried. But to silently cry when you want to scream was the most painful thing. And I just remember my body was shaking, but the only thing I kept saying to myself is, "Don't you dare make a sound." And so I didn't. And you did not know
I
I was
didn't.
crying. You did not
I didn't.
know I knew it was happening. You had no idea.
None.
And
No clue.
that was one of the hardest nights of my life. I remember in nursing school, we had to talk about one of the most difficult times of our life. We had to give a presentation, and I talked about that. And when I when I got done, there was not a dry eye in the room. So yes, that's a moment that we share that no one else would ever know, no one else would understand. But
Mm-hmm.
I took the pain for you because you couldn't see it. And yeah, probably, at that time, that was the most gut wrenching pain I think I've ever. And even to think about it is really difficult
Yeah.
because it hurt to the depths of my soul.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know. And now, like I said, I see the pictures that were taken, and you literally can see his life slipping away. There's even a picture that you can see this bright light over him, like that's when his spirit was leaving, and it's very, um, I didn't. It's just, it's God's mercy, is what it was. He
Yes.
didn't want me to, and so we made it through that morning. I stayed up all night long. In addition to the countless days and nights that I was up with them. And I had made the decision to go back to the hotel to take a nap because I was coming back because I believed that when I got back, my son had made it all night. So these people were crazy. Like there's nothing wrong with my son. Um, and when I got up and came back, um, we all got scrubbed up to go in. He was gone. And I just remember, and I know a lot of moms, because it's hard for moms and dads, but let's talk to moms. When you lose a child, you are literally losing a piece of yourself. The cry and the scream that I let out was from my soul. I could not believe that they were handing me my deceased child. And they put him in my arms. And I just remember saying, "I'm so sorry. I tried so hard." But But in healing and in therapy, I know, it's like we as moms, it's our job to nurture. And I did that. I did that. I showed up every day. Um, as distressed as I was, I tried to pump. So what little bit of breast milk I could give him, he had. Um, Even though he couldn't digest it well. You know, and again, what I will say, y'all, is God was so merciful because he knew that I could not watch my son take his last breath. Ain't no way. As much as I thought I could, his dad did not stay with him that night. Like I said, it was me and my sister. He went back to the hotel. It was me and my sister. And so when I came back and he was gone, I held him and I said my goodbyes. And then to hand your child to the nurse, and the nursing staff was crying. It was something. When I handed him and they quickly put Nigel in my arms. Um, and I had to go home that day. I had to leave. They released Nigel. He was ready to go. They let him stay until his brother transitioned. And so I went home to a 4-year-old and an 18-month-old baby and a newborn. And it was hard, y'all, but that's my story. And then we'll get to the grief part. I want you now to talk about your son, his life, his life, things that you remember, what was special about him. Talk about Jordan.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to find the words to transition into that. So my son um, was born July 21st, 1997. Funny thing is, when I was younger and I thought about having children, I always wanted girls. I just thought I just want a bunch of girls. But when I had my son, I tell the story that I instantly fell in love with him. Um, it was an instant connection. So much so that I had pretty bad separation anxiety. I remember the first time his father wanted to take him somewhere without me, and I cried, like,
Mm.
thinking, oh, I can't, be separated from my son. So um, that was the start of Jordan and I's relationship. We were very close. Um, to say he was a mama's boy is putting it mild. He was very attached to his mama. Very smart. Jordan was fearless, extremely intelligent. He was so curious. He was always trying to figure things out, or he would watch his dad mess with things or tinker or fix things, and he was determined he was going to do it. We had a few issues because of that. I remember one time he almost set my house on fire because he thought he was going to wire some things together and put the wrong wires together and cause a reaction. So just very curious little boy. One thing I tell people is he was so smart. He was about excuse me. He was about 3, 4 years old when he started. He knew his alphabet, and we would be driving in the car and we'd get to like a stop sign, and he would say, "Mom, what's STOP spell?" And I would say, "It's stop." And so he kept that to memory. I remember one particular incident. We were at the waiting room waiting to get an X-ray or something for his little sister, and he saw the word "waiting" in room, and so he spelled it. And I told him what that meant. So I say that to say he was pretty much able to somewhat read by the age of 4 because of his curiosity. Um, but growing up, I just always knew Jordan was special. So smart, excelled in school to the point where he skipped a grade. He did not actually ever go to the 5th grade. He went from the 4th grade to the 6th grade, straight into middle school. Now, hindsight's always 2020. Probably should have made him go to 5th grade because he jumped into an older set of friends, an older group of people, but he was just, smart enough. Teachers just didn't feel that fifth grade was necessary for
Mhm.
him. Um, so, but around that time, middle school, is when he began to just start to be a little curious about medications for whatever reason. He would research, you know, different medications, and what their reactions were to people and how they affected people. And at the time, I didn't really think a whole lot of it, other than I knew he was a very curious kid. So I thought he just shifted his curiosity to that. Um, and I didn't see what was probably the writing on the wall, so to speak.
Mhm.
Kind of like my sister said, she couldn't see the life slipping away from Michael. I couldn't see the danger approaching my son. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to believe that he would have that kind of issue or problem.
Mhm.
But it did actually start in middle school. He started getting in trouble a lot, and um, he would take things. Sometimes, I had back issues, and sometimes, unbeknownst to me, again, hindsight is 2020. I didn't lock my medication up, and I would notice that bottles of pills seemed a little bit sparse.
Mhm.
But again, you see sometimes what you want to see, what you want to believe.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's where he really started dabbling. Um, one particular time, he had taken something at school. I want to say he was in the eighth grade, maybe at the time. And they had called us to the school because he wasn't acting right. And at that time, I was a nurse, so I immediately saw his pupils, and I knew he had taken something. I mean, it there's telltale signs, and your pupils
Right.
are one of the biggest telltale signs.
Yep.
And so immediately when I looked at him, I said, "What did you take?" Um, and when anyway, we ended up having to take him to the hospital that day. He had taken a variety of things. None of it was necessarily what he thought, I don't think, but it was just a variety of things. And I remember asking him, because the doctors gave him a really hard time. They were pretty harsh, which looking back, I understand they should have been harsh. It was a very serious situation, but
Mhm.
the mama in me was, a little taken aback. And I remember asking him why he did that, why he took these things. And he said, I just wanted to calm my brain. I thought maybe if I took it, I could calm my mind and I wouldn't get in trouble at school. Um, Again, we went through some things where we did try to get him some help. We took him to talk to people. There were suggestions made, ADHD medication, things like that. But I didn't want to. I didn't want to go that route with him. I
Mhm.
felt like, I felt like we could do it on our own. We were heavily
Mhm.
involved in the church at the time. A lot of support I felt like we had. He had a lot of mentors and support, and I felt like, medicating him was not the answer. And so we decided not to go that route. We decided to, you know, count on our abilities, and, the church's abilities, and not really hearing the cry for help that I think he was giving us.
Mhm.
So fast forward, I won't go through the whole, fast forward, he did become an addict. He got addicted to pills, mainly Xanax, Percocets. Um, and then that started him, spiraling.
Mhm.
There were arrests. I remember the first time he was arrested. Um, you know, shattered me. A mother thinking their child is going to be behind bars, cold, no one to help. What's going to happen? It was earth shattering. So of course we did what we any parent would do, and we got him out, and we got him lawyers, and we tried to talk to him, and we tried to steer him in a different direction. And I think looking back, Jordan was the type that never wanted me to worry and
Mm-hmm.
always wanted me to be happy. So he was very good at making me feel like he was going to be okay, making me
Mm-hmm.
feel like, it wasn't as serious as it was. He was a
Mm-hmm.
jokester.
Oh, I
Everybody
know.
knows he loved to joke.
Oh, yeah.
He loved to smile. His
Beautiful
smile
smile.
his smile was infectious. You
Mm-hmm.
could be mad as I don't know what at Jordan, and all he had to do was smile.
Mm-hmm.
It was so infectious that his teachers would tell me, I would be so mad at him, and he would just smile at me, and it's like, oh. So he knew, how to kind of get to mama, and so I think I let a lot of things go on the strength of not my child,
Yeah.
on the strength of he's going through something, but he's a smart kid. He'll be okay.
Yeah.
We're a strong family. We are not those people, so he'll be okay. I just
Yeah.
have to be present. I just have to be here for him. And it'll all work out in the end. Um, but, it continued to become a problem. The last time he was arrested, he'd actually spent a good amount of time in jail. And one of the things that they did for him, well, he did for himself, he pursued a program in Durham called TROSA to get some help. It was for addicts, versus spending time behind bars. He spent time there, so he was going to be there for 2 years and get the help he needed. So breath of fresh air to me, sigh of relief.
Same.
Okay, now he's going to be there. He's going to get the help. He's going to get clean. He's going to get, you know, um, they help you with schooling, a career path, So sigh of relief. I missed him dearly, but I knew at that moment he was somewhere where he couldn't get the drugs and his mindset could possibly change. So that was in 2018,
Mm-hmm.
2019 is when
Mm,
it was.
no, it had to be like prior to 20. No, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. I was already
Yeah,
married. That's right.
yeah.
2019.
It was
Mm-hmm.
it was it was around 2019.
Yeah.
So he did great. He got his CDL license while he was there. He finished school while he was there, and he made quite an impression. When we went to visit, everybody just talked about his politeness, his kindness, his um, intelligence, his smile.
Mm-hmm.
So we finally thought we were out of the water, and then situation happened. Um, to this day, I can't really speak clearly on what happened, but he was asked to leave the program, not because of drugs. There was no drugs involved in that. It was some other things that had some pretty strict rules and regulations, and so he came home. Um, that was right before. It was right at the end of 2019, so we were going into Thanksgiving time. He came
Mm-hmm.
home,
Yeah.
and I remember when he came home, he first thing he did was he handed me his diploma, and he said, "Mom," he said, I hope I made you proud. I tried." He said, "I tried." And I knew he tried. He tried really hard, and he was extremely disappointed. But the biggest thing for him was, Mom, are you proud? You know, I tried, and I'm sorry. And I did not hold it against him. Like I said, to this day, I don't understand all the ins and outs. And not to make excuses for him, but there were some things that, I don't feel like were done correctly. And for a while, he was doing good. Let me back up a little bit. While he was at Trosa, he
Mhm.
started doing music,
Yes.
and he found a love. He was writing songs. He was
Yes.
in the studio. He was putting those songs on uh,
Spotify.
right,
Yep.
Spotify. He was
Spotify.
putting them on MP3 player.
Mhm.
He was definitely making a name for himself. His stage name was Jomu, which I didn't love because that's not what I named him, but I let him have it. Anyway, so he started doing music, and that's where he found his passion.
Mhm.
So when he came home, we thought, okay, he was still into his music. He had a CDL license. So we thought, okay, job, that's where we're going with this. Job, do your music, pour out your heart in your music. And again, as a mother, I knew he hit a dark place because the music started getting darker and
Mhm.
darker. He was proud of it, and he would love to be like, Mom, I just made a new song, listen to this. And I would listen, and again, it would start to get darker and
Yeah.
darker,
Yes.
to the point of there was a message,
Mhm.
and it wasn't a message I was ready to receive.
Mm-mm.
Um, and he started doing the drugs again. I could tell, things weren't working out like he thought. Life wasn't the same on the outside as it was on the um I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Um Life wasn't the same on the outside as it was on the at Trosa, or
Mhm.
when he was locked up. So the music got darker. His thought processes got darker,
Yeah.
and and I apologize. Okay. His music got darker. His thought processes got darker, and he was trying to send a message to me without sending a message. Again, like I said, I wasn't hearing it because as a mother, we don't sometimes want to acknowledge those things. We want to believe our children will be okay.
Mhm.
So fast forward, his birthday weekend. Um, Prior to that, at the end of June, he had an accidental overdose. Um, I was at work. My daughter called me saying, Jordan is unresponsive. They can't get him up. He's unresponsive. I remember racing out of the job, racing to the hospital because by the time I got the call, the ambulance was there and they were on their way to the hospital. And we were racing to the hospital and, just telling God, no, I can't, I'm not ready, you know, he needs another chance, I'm not going to accept it. I remember saying those words. I'm not accepting this. This is not the end. Get to the hospital, and it wasn't the end. In fact, they did bring him back, and he walked out of the hospital angry.
Mm.
Um, and I remember, me and his father was there, his sister was there, and I grabbed him and I said to him, I said, or I think his father said, Jordan, do you care if you live or die? And a tear rolled down his face, and his answer was, I don't know.
Mm.
And I think that's the first time I realized there's something so much more than I know here.
Mm-hmm.
So that next day, I took the day off work, and me and him got up and we went to eat. We went to his favorite place, which was the beach, and we sat there. And he shared with me some things that I never knew, things that he had, um, things that he had tapped into that were very, um, I'm sorry.
No, I told y'all she has a very demanding job. I'm sure it's work related.
Yeah, give me just 1 second.
No worries.
Um, I really tried not to do this, but I
No,
was
we understand. And like I said, this is a conversation between two sisters. We are giving you guys our hearts, our dark days, and so but she still has a job that's very demanding. So
yeah, I'm sorry. So I'm done with that. I've answered. I'm unplugging.
okay.
So we went to the beach. He shared things with me that I honestly promised myself I would never tell anybody, and I've never told anybody. But the things that he shared with me let me know that my son was had tapped into a spiritual realm that even I didn't understand, a spiritual knowledge that I didn't understand, an outlook that I didn't understand. And it shocked me. It shocked me the depths and the deepness of things that he felt. And that's when I truly realized he feels this world differently than we do,
Mm-hmm.
differently than most. And as impressed as I was equally afraid.
Scared. Mm-hmm.
So I felt better though, you know, I felt like he got it out. I felt like I heard him. I felt like I understood. And then we started talking about getting him help. You had said you were going to take him with you to a meeting and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, try to get him some, you know, help with Narcotics Anonymous, and
Yep.
that you guys would, you know, try to do this together. And he was looking
Mm-hmm.
forward to that. And
He
his
did.
birthday came around, and he just wanted to have a get together. And, you know, I happened to be out of town, and I think everybody was just worried because we knew he was kind of spiraling. We could hear it in his music. We could hear it in the things he was sharing. You know, he had just had a scare, but was like it was so important to him. He was, you know, so he had his friends, he had his party, and he had a great time. And then the day of his birthday, um, I got up that morning. That night, he had come home around midnight, and I asked him what he wanted to eat, and he gave me a couple ideas, and he said, you know, whatever you think, mom, is fine, which is typical of Jordan. You know, it's all up to mom. So I was like, okay, so we'll have a special dinner for you, and you know, and I left for work with a really uneasy feeling. I
Mm-hmm.
I remember I looked back at the house, and for a fleeting moment, I felt like this might be it for some reason. I felt like, you know, does he even want to be here anymore? And then I instantly got angry with myself for having that thought. I went to work, tried to call him, couldn't get him, sent him a message, and he did respond to my message saying, "Thanks, mom, you're the best." And then I left work, and you know, I went and I bought the birthday dinner, and was talking on the phone to you, and I went and I
Mm-hmm.
bought the cake, and you know, it was during COVID. It was, you know, 2020,
Twenty.
July 21st, 2020. And so we were going to do a Zoom, and we were going to sing happy birthday, and we are going to do these things. And I'm driving, and I call his sister, and I said, you know, where's your brother? And she said, well, he's upstairs. He's sleeping. And I said, well, go upstairs and wake him up. I'm on my way with the food. And, you know, we're going to have this birthday celebration. And so I'm on the phone with her, and she walks upstairs, and I'll never forget the sound she made. It wasn't a scream, it was almost like a gut release. And she said, "He's cold."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "What do you mean he's cold?" And she said, "Mom, I don't know. He's cold." And she said, "I'm scared." And I said, "Call 911." I said, I'm on my way." And I remember, I know I was doing 100 miles an hour. Nobody convinced me otherwise. If there was a car on the road with me, I promise I didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
I raced to the house. I got there, and I remember I just jumped out and I ran. I ran up the steps. And when I walked in the room, he was laying on the ground. And I looked in his eyes, and a friend of his was there, or yeah, was there. And so he had started CPR. He had 911 on the phone. They were telling him what to do. So I remember when I walked in, I pushed him out of the way, and I started doing chest compressions. And I'm doing the chest compressions, and I'm looking in his eyes, and you know, two voices were fighting in my head. One was the nurse, and one was the mother.
Mm-hmm.
The nurse said, "He's already gone," but the mother said, "Mm-mm, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
giving up."
Mm-hmm.
And so I worked on him. I worked on him. And I just kept looking at him. I just kept saying, "I know you're tired, but please, not today." And EMTs got there, and I moved out of the way, and I let them do their thing. And I just remember touching his feet and, holding on and just saying, "I know you're tired, but please, not today." And they worked with him for about probably a good 40 minutes, 45 minutes. I guess time stood still for me. I really couldn't tell you how long they worked on him. But and then finally she stopped. And in all actuality, I knew he was gone. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I I worked with patients. I knew he was, but it was just that little bit of hope of a mother. And so they told me he was gone. And, because of the way he passed, of course, the detectives and the police came. And I remember they walked in the room and they said, "This is, we're going to have to treat this as not a crime scene per se, but we have to do our investigation." So,
Right.
and the one cop said, he looked at the other and he said, "I think we can give her a moment." And he said, "Okay." And I don't even remember looking. I heard them, and I don't remember seeing them. And so they walked out. Everybody left the room and they shut the door. And I laid on his chest and I cried. And I just kept saying, "I'm sorry. Like, I know you were tired and it's okay. And I tell the story every day on his birthday. Well, not every day, every birthday, but I
Every
tell the
year.
story every year that, you know, it's ironic. A friend of mine said, that it was typical Jordan. She said Jordan Woodham had wanted you to have 2 days
Mm-hmm.
to mourn or remember. She was like, "So typical Jordan, he went on his birthday. So
Mm-hmm.
now you have one day, the birthday and the day he left."
Mm-hmm.
Um, but one thing that always resonates with me is that on that same day, 23 years ago, because it was his 23rd birthday, they laid him on my chest and he
Mm-hmm.
cried. And then 23 years later, I laid on his chest and I cried. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I say that, addiction is a horrible thing. And if I can say anything to any parent, my advice is to put aside that desire that we all have as parents,
Mm-hmm.
that blindness that we have as parents, that
Yeah.
deafness that we have as parents, to
Yeah.
say, I hear you, but I don't want to believe that because you're my
Right.
child. I see you, but I don't want to believe that because you're my child.
Right.
That's a huge mistake we made. That's a mistake I feel that I made. And any advice I can give is listen. You know, no matter what it is, no matter how small, any change, any shift, listen. Because a lot of times this is a cry for help. And if you have a child like I had, they're never going to want you to be sad. They're never going to want you to be upset. So they're not going to clearly tell you. They're
Yeah.
not going to clearly, say, help me, say, I'm suffering, say, this is the only way I can get through a day. They're going to pretend, they're going to mask it.
Yeah.
They're going to joke with you when you start to become worried and, make you at ease because,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is just him being him, or they're just experimenting or whatever. So, my advice to any parent is listen with your
Mm-hmm.
ears, see with your eyes,
Mm-hmm.
um, feel with your heart. Your heart is going to want to say no, but your head, your eyes, your ears aren't lying to you. They're not. And so pay attention to that and, seek out the help that is definitely needed. Because if I could turn back the time, um, I would have not pushed away those moments of denial. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have, you know, pushed away those moments when my head was telling me this isn't right, something's
Mm-hmm.
wrong, but my heart was saying, no, that's your baby boy. That's Jordan. That's your baby. That's not the truth. That's not the case. Um, so that's my advice. That's my story. And yeah, very difficult to lose your best friend, and he was one of my best friends.
Yeah.
I joke and tell people I read something one time that said something about how people think soulmates have to be relationships, like a man and a woman in a relationship, but I read somewhere where a soulmate can be a sibling, a child,
Mm-hmm.
and that was truly, I feel like, my soulmate. That
Yeah.
was, you know, we were connected in a different way that most people wouldn't understand. So
I agree. I agree. Um, Thank you for sharing. I will say, from an aunt's perspective, I saw it. Um, I prayed about it a lot. I joined ministry groups and constantly prayed. And, it was the same, like you said, whenever I had the opportunity to talk to him, he would, joke it off, or, he had this thing with me because anyone that knows me, like when I'm on something, I'm on it. And he's like, Auntie has no chill. And I don't.
yes, yes, he said that all the
Serious.
time.
Yeah. Auntie doesn't have a chill. I had no
His
chill.
favorite thing was, Mom, tell Auntie to chill.
Right. And
It's
Auntie
not
had no chill because Auntie was worried. But um, I remember when he agreed to go, and we were going to go to NA together, and I got sick,
him.
and something happened with your car. And I just remember thinking, no, 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 no. I gotta, gotta do this. And then for a long time, because the part of I carried a lot of guilt because the night that he had his party, um, I actually went there and I asked that he not, and everything that I did was based out of fear because I was so scared something was going to happen to him. I was so scared, and that fear is masked. It wasn't masked. The fear was out of love. Didn't want to lose my nephew. We'd had our talks. I knew some of the stuff that he struggled with, but I would give him a pep talk about how beautiful he was, how talented he was, how life is bright for you, baby. And it just, yeah. And so on that particular day, I had no clue because once he made it past that party, I thought, oh, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And we were so excited to do the Zoom birthday. And I remember my children calling me and asking me, Mom, I see stuff on social media. Is it true? And I was like, absolutely not. I was just on the phone with your auntie. She's on the way. She's got the food and the cake. We're about to be on Zoom. Like, stop it. And then um, I found out. So I will say that after that, I was absolutely in awe of your strength. Um, I didn't know how you could carry it. You spoke at his funeral. It's not something I don't know if I could have done. But you did have this unbreakable bond, and it was befitting that you be the one to have those remarks and to say something. And so I understood it, and it gave me peace in that moment. And I know that's what he would have wanted. Um, I, I want to talk now about our the way we handled our grief. Um, for me, not well. I hid mine because at that time, everyone was involved. My parents, my siblings, my grandmother. Um, so, and my husband at the time. But then I had small children, and I had to explain to them why I only brought one baby home, and I had an 18-month-old baby boy that missed his mom and was like so attached, didn't want me to walk out of a room because I'd been gone for a month. And then I had this preemie that was missing his twin. And there's a twin bond, and I don't care what anyone says. I saw him get up and look up at the sky and just babble to every morning things I couldn't explain. Um, but there was things that I didn't share with my family. I didn't sleep at night. I would get up as soon as my husband would go to work and take the older kids to daycare, and I had to get out of that house. And I would drive around until my parents would go to work, and I would go to their house where my little brother was, and he would open the door for me, and that's where I would sit for the majority of the day. And I would spend time at the cemetery where my son was buried. And I just felt like if I can do this on my own and them not see me so broken and so hurt, that they'll move on and that'll help me move on. And I remember asking God, I was like, one of the things about me is I love to be silly and laugh. And me and my sister still laugh. It was something we definitely share with our brother. We love to laugh and laugh until we literally are sick. Our stomachs hurt. It's just our thing. We're very silly. And I asked God, I said, I would love one day to have some joy restored because I don't have none. I don't have any joy. But I can tell you that God did do that for me. And that my journey, because now that's 26 years ago, my other son, Nigel, is a 26-year-old man, like I said, that is a biomedical engineer and in the absolute joy of my life. He's quirky, he's different, he was meant to be here, and he honors his brother in everything that he does. Every year for his birthday, he visits Michael's gravesite, and it's something that he wants to do alone, and I allow him that space to do it. Um, but I would caution parents, and then I'm going to ask you, T. I want you to tell them about your grief and how it's evolved. As of now, a lot of times life has evolved. It's been 26 years, but then I have my moments, even still, as you saw, that I couldn't hardly get through the story. It has no time limit, guys. It just doesn't. It doesn't. And nobody can tell you how to do it. I mean, that's your baby. It's unnatural. I just remember that I couldn't sleep because my soul was searching for my child. I was like, where is my baby? Where's my baby? I'm a believer, so I knew about heaven. I knew but it's still it's something about who's taking care, where's my child? And mothers out there, I know you know what I'm talking about. It's unnatural to bury your child. It's unnatural. It's not the law of nature. They're supposed to bury you. And so Latisha, talk to us about how you handled your grief. I know that you had you moved and you had life changes, but how were your moments that we didn't see? How was your grief journey in the beginning times?
Um, Honestly, in the beginning, I would do a lot of my crying at night,
Mm-hmm.
um, behind closed doors, in the quiet of my room.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would think about him, and I would just cry. Sometimes I would laugh. In those early moments, however, because it's such an unnatural thing,
Mm-hmm.
um, I would have moments where I would have to ground myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One particular time was right around Christmas, and I was Christmas shopping, and I was at the mall, and I was about to walk in, and this sudden thought that you're only buying for two children this year. You don't have to buy him anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that, as crazy as that may sound, that thought, that realization shook me to almost feeling like the things around me weren't real.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that I wasn't real, so to speak. So I would grab myself at times, or I'd wring my hands together, or I'd squeeze my hands real tight, and I would have this grounding moment where you're here. This really happened, because it's so unnatural. It's hard to believe
Mm-hmm.
that you are on this earth and your child's not.
Yep.
Because it's not supposed to be that way. They're
Mm-mm.
supposed to, like you said, they're supposed to bury you. So the
Mm-hmm.
thought of I'm here and he's not was hard for me to wrap my brain around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so definitely went through those moments of just feeling not real, like having
Mm-hmm.
to ground myself. Um, a couple of nights, I remember one in particular, I was laying in the bed and I was thinking about him, and I was crying, which I normally did. And then I just remember this scream coming out of me. And I didn't realize I was even doing it. And when I tell you that it was not a scream it was from my soul.
In your
My
soul. Mm-hmm.
soul was
Yeah.
screaming for my child.
Yes.
I was in a state of just disbelief, and that was all my body. It was almost like an out of body experience. I didn't even realize I was doing it.
Uh-huh.
Um, that's probably those first few months to look the first year, if not a little longer. Those first couple of years, I'll be honest, was a lot of crying, a lot of sleepless nights. But then I would have the dreams at night where I feel like
Mm.
be there in my dreams.
Yeah.
And it would always bring me peace. I would look for those dreams. I would want to
Yeah.
go back to sleep to finish
Yeah.
talking to him, finish telling him what I need to say. Um, since then, the only thing I can say is there is literally, it's been 6 years. I just went home to visit his grave and to celebrate his, what would have been his 29th birthday. Um, 6 years, and there's still not one single day that has gone by that he has not been on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always for a long time. It's not always sad. There are many
Mm-hmm.
times it brings a smile to my face. I'll play his music, and I'll feel, I can hear the smiles. I can hear the pain. I can
Yeah.
hear every emotion. And there's just not a day that goes by I don't think of him. So I just would say to any parent that has lost a child, let yourself grieve however you need to.
Yes.
There is no time limit.
Nope.
There is no time limit of how often you talk about him. Again, his name was Jordan. I say his name often.
Mm-hmm.
When people ask me how many children I have, I say 3 because I do.
Absolutely.
Um, he will not be just a memory. He is my child. So speak that child's name. Let
Amen.
yourself breathe. If you want to post on Facebook every day something
Do it.
about your child, something about grief, post it. If people get sick of it, let them get sick of it. Because you know what? It's not for them. It's for us. It's for our healing.
That's right.
It's to remind us they were here.
They were here. They
I
meant
read
something.
something one time that said it said just that. Like, I'm not posting. They were here. I need everybody to know that they were here. Life has moved on. I have, moved to a different place. I've achieved a lot. But one thing I will never let anybody, he was here
He was
and he
here.
made his mark and he meant something.
He
I
did.
will never let that die. I will never let that go away. So that would be my advice to, keep their memory alive. Say their name
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
often.
Yes. Often. Michael Charles George.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Christian Murray.
Yes. Yes.
Beautiful souls, both of them.
Beautiful souls, beautiful baby boys, beautiful.
Yes.
I watched my nephew grow from a baby to 23 years. And, we talked about this, like loss is loss, and parental bereavement is equally as bad. And I wonder, like I had 4 weeks with my son, yeah, 23 years with yours. And then we talk about my parents had 45 years with our brother. Um, it's all painful. For me, it was the death of a dream. I had hopes of bringing home my babies. Um, some of you know, all of you don't. I have twin grandsons um, that I am actively helping my daughter, during the days, watch them. And it's like God saying, you endured the hard times, and I'm going to here, you know, um, because it is the most beautiful thing, and it's the most loving and merciful thing. Um, my experience didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but I got something wonderful from it. I love my youngest child, Nigel. I will always keep my son, Michael. He is my son. I have 4 children. Um, my angel baby, and he ushered his brother right on into this life. And I know that he watches over him all the time. Nigel is very special. All of my children are, but there's something different with him. And he was meant, they were both meant to be here for the time that God allowed. Um, but let's talk now about what it's like now to watch our parents in their golden years. Our mother is 77, and our father, God willing, on Saturday will be 80 years old. Um, December 6th, 2025, I received a text from my son, Nigel, who was very close to his uncle, and I'm going to say his name, Charles Leon Walker Jr., a.k.a. Chuck, a.k.a. Chucky. Our sweet little brother. There's 7 years between me and him, and 6 between my sister Latisha and him. And me and my sister, by the way, we're 16 months apart. So there's that. um, so he was our little brother. But he was 6'6". He was huge. He was the tall, gentlest, sweetest, the most
Giants.
wonderful. Oh my Lord. You couldn't meet a kinder, more gentler, more loving soul, beautiful human being. And I got the text from my son to have my husband to call him. I knew something was wrong because I share locations with my son, and I saw he was at my brother's house. And I asked, was everything okay? He didn't respond. And he asked my husband, was he on speakerphone? So immediately my body recoiled because I was like, what's wrong with my little brother? What's wrong with my little brother? What's wrong with my little brother? What is wrong with my little brother? My husband gets off the phone. He walks around. He doesn't say anything. And then he to tear up. And he said that he passed. And I said, passed what? He said, no, Sherry, he passed away. And I was like, what? And then my son, after he knew that I knew, my sister-in-law wanted me to go and tell my parents, and I had to tell my sister. And y'all, as the oldest, I carry a lot of things. I've always wanted to look out for both of them, sometimes to their aggravation. but that's just the position of being the oldest. You want to be the one that, makes sure they're good and takes care of them, and assert yourself, and sometimes things they don't want you to.
Yeah.
But um that was a hard thing to do, to take that drive. I called my sister on my way to my parents' house, and T, you can, or her nickname, by the way, is T. So I've been really good saying your name, Latisha, this whole
Yeah,
time.
it's been really good.
I have. But you can speak to the phone call.
um, so because of the death of my son and how it happened, I have a little bit of PTSD.
Yeah,
And phone calls are one of the things that can trigger it.
sure.
So when she called me, I know my sister very well. So first of all, I knew she was crying. Um, and then she said, "Are you sitting down?" And she asked me, "Was my husband home?" Two things that my sister's not going to ask me unless something is extremely wrong. And I knew that. And so instantly fear gripped my heart. And I told her no. I said, "No, no, no, you cannot tell me no, 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 I'm not listening. No, 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 no." And I jumped off the couch and I ran. My husband was in the garage at the time. And I ran in there and I literally threw him the phone and I said, "Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Take the phone. I don't know what she's going to say, but something's wrong and I can't do it." And I was so gripped with fear, threw him the phone and I ran outdoors
Hmm.
and I paced in front of my house because I knew someone had passed away. I didn't know who,
Yeah.
but I knew it was someone. And finally, I got it together enough to come back in, and I could hear the tone in my husband's voice was cracking, and like he even was crying somewhat. So then
Mhm.
I instantly knew. And of course, I have a fear of something happened to my children. So I instantly screamed at him, "Is it my children? Is it my children? Is it my children?" He said no. I said, "Is it my grandchildren?" He said no. So then I'm like, but he said, "But it's just as bad." And so when he said it's just as bad, my brain could not calculate. And he grabbed me and he said, your brother passed away this morning." And I screamed and I fell to the ground because he was correct. That was just as bad because that was my first child. Might as well say. That was
Yes.
my baby. I was 6, but he belonged to me. So yeah, that's how I received the news. But I'll let you go ahead,
Yeah.
share.
So it was really tough. That call was horrible. And then we pull up in the driveway, and I try to contact my aunt, my dad's older sister. I wanted someone there to help because my parents are older and they're in fair health, but they have some issues, and I just did not know what that would do to them. And I just didn't know. And my aunt at the time, she wasn't doing that well. Um, but she did end up coming, and I called a cousin who was also supposed to meet me over there. But when I got there, no one was there. I went to the door. They came to the door, both with a smile on their face. It was the most heartbreaking thing, and I replay it over and over. Um, I asked them to come in the room with us. Me and my husband came in, and I wanted to sit down in the family room. They sat down, and I tried to tell them. I couldn't get it out, so my husband did. My mother screamed. My father was shocked and then eventually lowered his head and cried. And it just, y'all, at this point in our lives, it was horrid, horrid. And though me and my sister had buried children, um, and we knew the pain, and if you knew the three of us, just it was just horrible. And my mother and my little brother had also a very close bond. He was sincerely a mama's boy.
Mhm.
Um, never didn't make a step without calling mom, and I used to tease him all the time. But he was a proud mama's boy. He didn't care. Um,
Yes.
and yeah, and it was rarely a day that went by that they did not speak. And I just remember thinking, God, how? And one of the things that, I want to say is in 2025, we had lost so many family members. It was at the end of the year, it was at 12 family members. And these were ranging from elder cousins to cousins that were younger than us, a cousin that was younger than us that we were just reconnecting with. Tragically, just sudden, with no expect, just like my brother. I mean, the night before he put up the Christmas tree, and his wife found him the next morning. It just, life is so short, but watching them navigate in the beginning, I was really shocked at how well I thought they did. But you remember how we said that a lot of times our grief is personal, it's silent, it's solo. We don't share it, we don't show it. And so parents, find somebody that you can be vulnerable with, and that, it's okay to cry. I have to tell my mother and father, but particularly my mother, every day I have to reassure her that nobody, look, if y'all don't want to talk to people, you don't have to.
Mm,
If you don't want to accept phone calls, you don't have to. If you want to lay in bed and do nothing, do that. If you cry all day, that was your child. No one can tell you how
mm, mm,
and how long you should grieve.
mm.
And as big sisters, sibling loss is very akin to child loss. And sometimes the siblings get overlooked, and not to victimize us enough, because the sadness goes out to my sister-in-law, my nieces and nephew. I can't imagine. He was so good. He was such a good father and husband, and present and loving and kind, and he was a wonderful brother and son. I mean, I could go on, honey, I really could. But you guys have seen, I've done other episodes, and I've told y'all, I mean, this was a huge loss for our family. And the reason that we're even sharing this also piece of it is because I also want siblings. I want you to know you're not alone. And let me tell you something. Just because, when we go about our day, whatever, and people focus on the different relationships, the parents, the spouses, all of that, and we also cater and care to that. But it has been, it has knocked me down to my core. It I can only describe the loss as equal as how I felt when I lost my own child.
I agree. One thing I will say different for me than Jordan, um, I was angrier about the loss
Mm,
of my brother. And I
so
know
was I.
that's probably going to sound extremely shocking to those listening, but I I felt like, whereas there was things where maybe signs and things that I missed with Jordan, there was there was no explanation, and to this day I can't accept a reason for him going. He
Mm-mm.
put up a Christmas tree. He went and did their tradition on Friday, which was going to a cheesecake factory or cheesecake place down here in Greensboro with his daughter. The one thing that grips me even today is thinking about, he walked up those steps
Mhm.
that night and he never walked back down. And it
Mhm.
just does not make any sense in my
Mm-mm.
brain. And as much as my son's death doesn't make sense because of why 23 years, why give me that closeness to take it away? But I was settled in knowing that, honestly, I felt like I felt like my son was tired.
Mm-hmm.
Did I think he wanted to die? No. But I felt like he had given a certain amount of himself and didn't have a lot more he knew how to give. And so there was things about Jordan that I think I knew that gave me not an okay feeling, but more of a peace to
Right.
let him go.
Right.
My brother, I can't find it.
I'm
I
still
still can't
searching.
find it.
I
It still makes
pray.
me angry.
I pray
And
for the peace that surpasses understanding because I don't understand either. And I was extremely angry in the beginning. I still fight with it, but so angry. Um, and it's hard for me to say it because, I always try to like be in this space when you lose someone because I could never get through any form of grief without God's love and help and prayers. I couldn't. I don't know how non-believers do it because there's no way I could. But I will say that this was so challenging because I don't understand. And I know him. I mean, we talked a lot. I mean, we're close. We all are. We're three of us. We're really close, and he had so much more to do. To as close as he was to his children and his like, I don't believe he wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
But I and it's hard. That's hard to make peace with. Um, do I think he's in heaven? Yep, I sure
Yes,
do.
absolutely.
1000%. Do I think that now that he has a glorified body and there's no more stress? I mean, because there were things my brother carried. I mean,
Yeah.
not for me to say, but there was things he carried, and there were things that he worried about,
Yeah.
and he was he internalized things. He didn't speak about things a lot. If he did, it would sometimes be in a joking manner, or
Mm-hmm.
he would make light of it. But I knew that things deeply bothered him, and he was very sensitive. Um, he had career aspirations that just weren't shaping up, and there were things that he wanted for himself that God, that he deserved because he
Yes.
was brilliant at what he did, and all of those things came out at his celebration of life. But what made me angry is, why now and why not then? If he was so wonderful at what he did and he was so important and such a great contributor to the success of the IT department. I won't speak on where he works. I'm not going to do all that. But I will say that he got shortchanged and he
Yeah,
deserved better.
he definitely did.
But sometimes, we get our reward. Our reward is in heaven. That's ultimately what we all strive for.
Yeah.
And
And he
I
definitely has his reward.
oh, he does. He
Even
does.
though it's hard to accept, I'm sure he is happy and he's at
Oh, yeah.
peace.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
I've had dreams, and I have had that assurance. I have signs. Um, and I know we talk about that a lot, but you talked about the time that you couldn't come home for Jordan's birthday, and then the feather, or the time that you had done nothing and his song just played on
Yes.
your
That was
right.
my first birthday after he passed. And I my phone was not on SoundCloud. I had nothing playing. I just simply got in the car, started it, and his song came on. And I
Mm-hmm.
instantly smiled. That's one of those times
Mm-hmm.
I smiled. And I said, okay, he's telling me happy birthday.
Mm-hmm.
He will not let this day go without letting me know, Mama, I want you to have a happy birthday. So, yeah, the signs are there.
Yeah, yeah. And so I wanted to have this conversation, and again, thank you so much, sis, because we wanted to honor those that we lost, and like I said, July being Bereaved Parent Month, there are so many of you out there that have recently lost. They're still, daily dealing with the loss. And we want you to know that you're not alone.
Mhm.
You're not alone. And that we want you to know that keep their names, out there. Speak them. I don't care if you think people get tired of it. People say things, and that was one of the things I was going to ask. What was one of the most unhelpful things that someone has said to you in your loss? And I can tell you mine was, well, at least you had another baby.
Mhm. Yeah, very heartless and unhelpful. And I hate to say heartless. Let me take that back. People think
And
that,
people just don't know what to
yes,
say.
they
Yeah.
don't know. And
Yeah.
so the intention was good. It was not
Sure.
a heartless intention.
It wasn't intentionally to be hurtful, but it was.
Um, I think for me, um, a lot of people kept telling me to find my peace. And I remember telling someone one time that my peace that I had is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Will I find a new way to be at peace? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But if I truly was going to find my peace, my son would still be here.
Yeah.
So understand that once that casket closed, that part of my peace went with it. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, I have found a way to be at peace, and
Yeah.
that's different.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. So, I guess at this point, and I'll say what was the most helpful thing someone said to you? Because for me, it simply was just that I see you sharing their stories with me, because you never know when you never know who went through it too. And this
Mhm.
is why this conversation is so important, because I remember feeling kindred spirits with other women that would come to me and be like, well, I don't talk about this a lot, but
Mhm.
this is what happened with my child. Or, I carried two and I lost, but and I really threw myself into being a peer counselor for Angels Network. It was for babies, mothers that had lost infant loss, um, multiples, moms of multiples that lost a twin or both of their twins, or premature births, early births, stillborns, all of that. Um, I am a firm believer that when God brings you through something, or you go through something, that it is your responsibility to then you're gonna the weird thing is people are gonna come across your path that have gone through the same thing, and that's your responsibility then to share and to help. And people did it for me. I would be shocked in casual conversations what people were willing to share with me. Can you give me something that someone said that you feel like was very helpful in your journey?
Um, I don't know that I can definitely say specifically what was helpful, but one thing I did was I joined a group, mothers who have lost sons. It was very
Mm,
specific to
yep.
sons, and it was for mothers. And I think one reason that was important to me was it was very specific. And at the moment, that was the specific loss I was feeling.
Yep.
Um, and to be a part of that group, we did things, we shared pictures.
Mm,
We would share, birth dates and, days. And then it got to the point where a new mom would join, and they would come up and they would say, I don't know how I'm going to do this. My son just passed a few days ago.
yep.
And we would get on. And we didn't know, to this day, I don't know these women, still don't, still on the
Exactly.
group. Don't know them, never met any of them, never, but we would get on and immediately start encouraging, immediately start
Hmm.
asking questions. What was his name? Okay,
Hmm.
share his picture.
Hmm.
Um, so being in that group of like-minded people
Yep.
who lost, and it was all different ages,
Mhm.
it was babies, it was uh, older than Jordan, it was around Jordan's age. One thing that really gripped me though was I seemed to see a lot of 23-year-olds
Mm,
at that time, and I thought that's so weird. But again, that group is what helped me, just like-minded people, just being able to share, just being able to say whatever I felt at the moment about my son, and nobody giving me any message that they thought would I needed, because these people knew how it felt. And so
right.
for me, that's what was that got me through.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I just want to say, and ask you out there that are watching us, those of you that are bereaved parents, add in the comments, what were the helpful things for you? What were the things that you did to help you navigate let's share together. And please remember, in the comments, post your child's name,
Yes.
post your favorite memory. We are here to have a community where we're going to keep their memories alive. Their lives mattered, and we will continue to carry them in our hearts, and we will speak their names and about their lives until ours is over. And
Yeah.
so thank you so much, sis, for doing this with me. Gosh, we went over an hour and a half, but I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
And my prayer is that it'll help someone out there that is watching. Um, I always say that, we are here to help each other. And the things that we go through are not in vain if we can share them and help somebody. And so I hope this episode helps someone tonight. Again, slide in the comments, please, and share with us your stories. Or, if this touched you in some way, just leave a comment. And Perspectives with Sherry is coming back, y'all. I have been on a journey of healing, and I'm not going to apologize. My regular schedules haven't been, but they're coming back. I am getting there, and I want to share more with you all. So thank you for tuning in tonight. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you know when we do drop new episodes. I've got some things that are lining up. Just be patient with me. And just like, this journey, it doesn't, always lean in where you get right back to everything, but in due time. And I'm thankful for each and every one of you. So, any final words, Latisha?
Just thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to have a voice. Thank you for giving your nephew a voice. Jordan, means a lot to me. You know how I feel about keeping his memory, his name out there. So thank you for the opportunity. And hopefully this helps someone. And, we as a community of bereaved parents, we need to encourage and lift up. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for being a part of it. All right, y'all. And on that note, we're going to bid you a beautiful good night. God bless y'all. And as I always say over here, keep, focus on your health, your wealth, and always remember to be and feel empowered in everything that you do. We love you over here at Perspectives with Sherry. Good night.
Good night.